Press the click on it. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, good evening. My name is Amza Ali, and I have the honor tonight of being your Master of Ceremonies for this evening's proceedings. It is my pleasure to welcome you all on this, the first day of the first North American Epilepsy Congress, the inaugural meeting of the International League Against Epilepsy's North American region, jointly hosted with the International Bureau for Epilepsy, the IBE. When this new North American region of the ILA was formed in 2006, it was comprised of the US, Canada, and just Jamaica. Jamaica was added to the North American region of the ILA for several reasons, but importantly because it too was an English-speaking country. In the ensuing years, recognizing the similarities faced by other English-speaking Caribbean islands, these territories were further included, and now the North American region now encompasses Canada, the US, and the entire English-speaking Caribbean. Perhaps the only regret we might have as we welcome you all is that we won't be meeting in person to share in the excitement of this historic occasion in the beautiful city of Toronto in fall, as had been the original plan. Indeed, Toronto was chosen as the city for the first Congress, precisely because it was so accessible to anyone in North America, and in particular to anyone from all the Caribbean islands. But yet, on the other hand, its virtual format has now allowed many more to be able to join, not only across this region, but indeed from anywhere around the world. I know I speak for many in saying how much I enjoyed the proceedings of today and all the presentations, and I am so excited about what remains to be heard and seen over the next 3 days. And so once more, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual symposium and to first introduce to you Dr. Dan Nguyen, who I will also welcome you to virtual Toronto. Dan is a neurologist with specialized training in the care of complex refractory epileptic patients, having done a 2-year fellowship at Yale and a 4-year PhD in neuroscience on multimodal neuroimaging of epilepsy. He is the director of the Montreal University Health Centre Epilepsy Group and is a CIHR Canada Research Tier 2 Chair in Epilepsy and a full professor in the Department of Neurosciences at the University of Montreal. His research interests focus on technical innovations used to facilitate clinical diagnosis, to identify biomarkers of epilepsy, and to understand the bioengineering mechanisms at work in epilepsy, with the hope thereby of interfering with the uncontrolled electrical process that underpins epilepsy. He has published more than 140 peer-reviewed articles and nearly 300 abstracts. Today, we are pleased that he will speak to you in his capacity as the current president of the Canadian League Against Epilepsy. Dan.
Thank you, Hamza. So as the president of the Canadian League Against Epilepsy, it is my pleasure to welcome all delegates to the very first North American Epilepsy Congress. The CLE is happy to relinquish our usual annual meeting to be the host of this inaugural North American Epilepsy Congress. And speaking of first, it is of course for us the first virtual meeting we help organize. While we would have liked to welcome you in person in Toronto, circumstances beyond our control changed these plans. And the challenges that have been faced this year from COVID have been unprecedented. Despite COVID, everybody has worked incredibly hard to make this happen, and I'd like to thank them personally for this. First of all, Nathalie Jeté, which has been an incredible leader, despite her busy schedule and all the ordeals she's been through over the last year. I still remember the times we sat down, just the two of us in Bangkok and Miami and then Baltimore, trying to organize a nice program, and also how our computer always seems to be low on battery when we meet. So without her leadership and direction, this virtual meeting would not have been possible. And also Mary Seco, a great leader herself, always there to defend people living with epilepsy and putting their interests at the forefront. Her input was important to shape up the final program of the virtual North American meeting. And obviously, thank you to the other members of the organizing committee for their quick responses when it was required. A special thank you to the ILE leadership, notably Sam Weeb, Ellen Cross, who have supported us when we started considering transforming the in-person meeting into a virtual one. Finally, I'd like to thank Siobhan Shannon, Finola Quinn, Dennis McAvoy for organizing all the logistics of the meeting. I realize it must not have been easy to organize everything in less than 3 months, from confirming our initial roster of speakers, modifying the schedule, obtaining CME accreditation, putting together all the recorded talks, and looking for a friendly platform for posters and sponsors. And that's only what I've been witness to. I'm sure there must have been more nail-biting stuff going on behind the curtain. So I don't know if you've had the chance to look at the portal today, but it looks great and very easy to navigate. And also thank you to our sponsors, our diamond sponsors, SI and Livanova, our gold sponsors, PendoPharm and Synovion, our bursary supporter, UCB. So thank you for braving this new way of meeting, and without your support, this would not have been possible. So over the next 3 days, we'll explore more than 20 diverse topics relevant within the North American region and further, and provide an insight into the latest research in the field of epilepsy. So thank you to our speakers and presenters for adapting to this unique situation. It has certainly been a learning experience for all as we navigate this new way of meeting. And from what I've seen already today during the IBE sessions, I know we're in for a really great meeting. So I hope we can see each other in person at our next Congress. But until then, please enjoy the wonderful program of speakers and topics for the first ever ILE Virtual Congress. Back to you, Hamza.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan, too, for reminding us about Nathalie's laptop. It is my pleasure now to introduce to you Mary Secco. Mary holds a master's degree in health information science. Her research interests are in developing interventions to improve health literacy and to provide coordinated social care to persons with epilepsy. She has worked for Epilepsy Southwestern Ontario, a Canadian not-for-profit organization, for the past 20 years, and in this role has provided epilepsy education to individuals, their families, their teachers, and communities. She is a powerful advocate and works with policymakers and elected officials at all levels, local, provincial, and national, to recognize the needs of people with epilepsy and to safeguard these rights in legislation. Her global priority is to see epilepsy become a global public health imperative. Today, we are pleased that she would speak to us in her capacity as Secretary General of the IB, as well as co-chair of the Scientific Organizing Committee of this, the first North American Epilepsy Congress. Mary.
Sorry about the big pause here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, great. So I thought I would use my 5 minutes to say some very, very important thank yous. And I thought I would do this by using some slides that were given to me by the 4 IBE chapters from North America. So thank you, Susan from the Epilepsy Foundation. And thank you, Deirdre from the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance, and Joy from Jamaica, and Thomas from Guyana. During the half-hour breaks today, during the IBE today, these people developed a slideshow to promote their chapters. So if you missed that slideshow, it will be uploaded on the IBE website. Each of them filled their slides with pictures of people. And they do this because that's how they think of epilepsy. They think of epilepsy as a condition that affects the people they know and they care about. They are frontline workers. They listen, share, empathize, answer questions, provide navigation, and provide hope. In many respects, they represent the heart of this brain disease. Each chapter submitted slides related to their advocacy work. They also shared program and funding ideas. They talked about ways to collaborate in the future. And so this came from our Jamaican group. So I am thrilled. We have 62 registrations for this Congress from Community Epilepsy Agency staff. And this is an incredible accomplishment. And I want to personally thank the CLAE and for making the registration fee affordable, because this is allowing our IBE chapters to attend. We called our IBE Day today 50 Million Reasons, and we did this because there are 50 million people around the world that are counting on us to work together to improve their life outcomes. This Congress is a great way for clinicians, researchers, community epilepsy agency staff, industry, and donors to come together and to recognize that we are stronger together. I want to personally thank Jeff Bobb, the Executive Director of Epilepsy Toronto, and his team. They helped to develop the IBE agenda that you saw today, the IBE program. Jeff approached speakers and his staff chaired sessions today, and he helped to promote the Congress with the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance colleagues. My co-chair, Dr. Natalie Jeté, you're an extraordinary individual. Your dedication to serving people with epilepsy in their clinical care is well known. But epilepsy to you is obviously vocational. You put people first, you listen, you share, you show great compassion and empathy in your interactions, and it is a pleasure to have worked with you on this Congress. I also want to thank the Congress Secretariat. Siobhan Shannon was our frontline for the Congress, and I don't think she sleeps. She literally sends emails throughout the night and throughout the sessions. She's always cordial and efficient and organized. Thank you, Siobhan, and the entire team at the ILEE Secretariat who work tirelessly all the time behind the scenes. So Finola and Dennis and Alma and the others at the ILEE Congress Secretariat, thank you. So my final slide. Already today, we have seen so many highlights. Thank you to all of our IBE speakers and moderators. A job well done today. In closing, as co-chair of this North American Epilepsy Congress, I welcome this gathering of researchers, clinicians, community epilepsy agencies, industry, and donors. Working together, we can provide hope And yes, no one should fight epilepsy alone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. And I can only echo all of your sentiments in relation to everyone you spoke of. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Nathalie Jeté. Nathalie is Professor of Neurology and Population Health Science and Policy and the Bluthorn Professor of International Medicine at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. She is a health services researcher, epileptologist, and Vice Chair for Clinical Research in Neurology and Chief of the Division of Health Outcomes and Knowledge Translation Research across the Icahn Mount Sinai Health System. She's been the recipient of over 50 research, teaching, and clinical awards, including the ILAE Ambassador for Epilepsy Award in 2017. She's also the past president of the Canadian League Against Epilepsy and chair of the ILAE Guidelines Task Force. Today, we are pleased that she will speak to you in her additional capacities as co-chair of the Scientific Organizing Committee of this conference, and also in her current role as chair of the North American region of the ILAE. Over to you, Nathalie.
Hello, everyone. As co-chair of the Scientific Organizing Committee, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the first ILE North American Epilepsy Congress. I'd like to welcome all of our members from the region, including Canada, the Caribbean, and the United States of America. I'd also like to welcome all other participants from the rest of the world. We're thrilled that you're going to be joining us over the next few days. I would like to thank my co-chair and IBE colleague, Mary Secco, as well as the members of our Scientific and Organizing Committee for all the work that they did to put together a really strong program. I think you'll agree that it's been an unprecedented time. We'd hoped to see you all in person, but this hasn't been possible in view of the current pandemic that has really perturbed our lives on a global scale. We realize there's no substitute for the tremendous benefit of in-person meetings, but we hope that this virtual meeting will still allow you to engage with others and enhance the remarkable work that you're doing, whether it's in the area of advocacy, clinical care, education, and research, to improve the lives of people living with epilepsy. We have a tremendous program that spans from bench to bedside to population health. There's something for everyone. Recently, the International League Against Epilepsy, in collaboration with the International Bureau for Epilepsy and the World Health Organization, published Epilepsy, a Public Health Imperative. This report demonstrates the imperative to make epilepsy a public health priority and highlights that further action is needed to address the global burden of epilepsy. Whether you live in North America or elsewhere in the world, we know that in many settings, there's still a lack of education, a lack of access to care and medication, and insufficient research funding for epilepsy research. People with epilepsy continue to face discrimination. Knowing is not enough, we must apply, and willing is not enough, we must do. The time to act is now. So I urge you to collaborate with key stakeholders in your region in order to really raise epilepsy awareness and to fulfill the mandate of the World Assembly Resolution on Epilepsy. I'd like to thank you all for your attention. Enjoy the meeting and remember that the time to act is now. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Nathalie. Next, I have the honor of introducing to you Professor Martin Brodie, who I know is listening, even though it's so late in Glasgow, Scotland. So Professor Martin Brodie has directed the epilepsy unit in Glasgow, Scotland since 1981. He has published more than 500 editorials, chapters, reviews, and scientific papers. He was secretary and then chair of the Commission on European Affairs of the International League Against Epilepsy from 1993 until 2001, and was vice president and treasurer of the ILA from 2001 until 2009. He set up the Scottish Epilepsy Initiative charity in 2003. Martin has received many awards, including the European Epileptology Award from the Commission on European Affairs, the Epilepsy Lifetime Service Award from its UK chapter, and the Epilepsy Lifetime Accelerator Award from the Epilepsy Foundation. He's also an ILA IBE Ambassador for Epilepsy. today he will speak to you by recording, I believe, in his capacity as the current president of International Bureau for Epilepsy. Over to you, Martin.
Good evening, everybody. I'm speaking to you from Blainfield, a little village outside Glasgow in Scotland. And I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes about the current programme for the International Bureau for Epilepsy, what we're doing and what we're going to do. Our mission is as follows. We hope to improve the social conditions and quality of life of all people with epilepsy and those who care for them around the world. A real challenge, I'm sure you'll agree. We were founded in 1961, and are still, of course, going strong. We currently have chapters in 104 countries around the world, with 137 individual organisations. That certainly keeps us very busy. Here is our International Executive Committee, our current one, and I have unfortunately very sad news to convey that our Treasurer, Anthony Zimba, recently was lost to COVID-19. What can you say? We are very, very sad, of course, as everybody would be, to lose such a colleague and good friend. He had undertook 15 years of service to IBE in Africa and was currently, as I mentioned, our treasurer, and he will be greatly, greatly missed. IBE is an umbrella group. We focus on public engagement, health information, international advocacy, best practice exchange, and supporting communities. We have a number of programs, including Epilepsy Next, focus on youth, promising strategies. We have our commissions, our teams, which I'll show you, our communications platforms, and of course we all greatly celebrate International Epilepsy Day. Epilepsy Next is an IBE focus on youth. It consists of our hub, Golden Lights Award, youth summits, and most recently we're going to set up a youth team. The Young Epilepsy Advocates Hub is a safe online environment for young people with epilepsy to meet and discuss issues of relevance to them. You can get involved, of course. Our Golden Lights Award recognises the young people affected by epilepsy who have been shining lights for others. They're nominated by their chapters, and awards are presented at every regional and international congress. And the next presentation will be in the 11th Latin American Congress in Medellin in February, March. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time to set this up for the current Congress. The youth summits had a great success. They target a general audience aged 30 and younger, and the objectives are to educate through inspiration, to show that epilepsy is not a barrier to success, to give an accurate representation of epilepsy to the world, to educate society and to hopefully end stigma, to empower people to feel comfortable talking about their epilepsy. There's nothing to be ashamed about, of course. COVID-19 has impacted on face-to-face summits, and we are now looking at online meetings, which arguably will allow greater participation by interested young people. We will see. We're setting up a youth team to ensure that the voices of young people are heard and heeded in IBE's future plans. I talked about the teams earlier, and I'll just mention them at the end of the little presentation. We have a promising strategies program which has been going on for some time, who has had 83 projects in 38 countries. Projects focused on human rights and legislation, health issues, training, and employment and public education. We currently have some funding from the Band Foundation in the US to support projects in 2020 aimed at encouraging African countries to create rational plans for epilepsy, and this is going very well. We have 3 commissions, a Research Commission, an Education Commission, and E-Solutions Commission. I really don't have time to go into the detail of these. You'll find them, of course, on our website. And most recently, we're setting up a series of IBE teams, including a global advocacy team, IB Academy, research team, youth team, and virtual congress team. I discussed the details of these earlier on in the IBED program this afternoon, and I don't have time again to go into all the details of these new and hopefully exciting and successful projects. All of this information can be found on our communications platform and much more, and I hope that you will avail yourself of the opportunity to see what IBE does and hopefully help us with our ongoing programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Brodie. And now for the last speaker for the night, it's my great honor to introduce to you Professor Samuel Weeb. Professor Weeb is a practicing clinical epileptologist and professor of neurology at the University of Calgary. He served as director of the epilepsy program at Western in London, Ontario, and as head of neurology at the University of Calgary. He then served as Associate Dean of Clinical Research for the University of Calgary. He founded the Clinical Research Unit at the university there, which is a data science unit that supports all health research in the university. He is currently Director of the Comprehensive Epilepsy Program, Professor of Clinical Neurosciences, and Chair of the Clinical Research Unit at the Cummings School of Medicine, University of Calgary. Among his many awards, Dr. Weeb was inducted as a Fellow of the Canadian Academy of Health Science in 2011. Today, it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Sam to speak to you in his current capacity as President of the International League Against Epilepsy. Sam.
Thank you very much, AMSA, for the kind introduction. I will now start sharing my screen to share a few slides with you. So it is a great pleasure, really, to be celebrating the first North American ILE Congress. It is a tremendous accomplishment. What I would like to do in the next few minutes is tell you a little bit about the International League Against Epilepsy, then focus a bit more on the North American ILAE region and its activities. So the ILAE, as you know, is an international organization, as the name implies, with 123 countries or chapters involving over 21,000 people or so. And it represents the 6 regions of the world that are identified by the World Health Organization, as you can see that. And the ILE just turned 110 years last year, so it is over a century old, and it has changed quite something since its inception in Budapest 110 years or 111 years ago now. Now, to probably tell you more concretely about the ILAE, or conceptually, I guess, I like to think about the ILAE activities in 4 main pillars or edifices. And these pillars are education, advocacy, standardization or regularization, and evaluation. And if you put all the first letters of those words together, the word is ease, which doesn't mean that it's easy to do this, but it's easier to remember it. And all of this, of course, on a strong foundation or bedrock of collaboration internally and externally as an organization. These are the elements that primarily serve our purpose. The ILE Academy has now taken on the role of education, and I urge you to visit the website. There are many activities going on. I will speak a bit more about education. Advocacy has been now channeled through our Global Advocacy Council, where our motto is Action for Epilepsy. And then standardization is done through a number of activities, including our journals, guidelines, certificates, courses, and so forth. And then evaluation is a process that we are engaging increasingly in, and it entails a cycle that could be pictured as asking the question, acquiring the knowledge, appraising it, applying it to the problem, acting again, and then asking the next question. So an iterative cycle of all activities that we are engaged in. Now, it is impossible not to talk about the very dramatic and unique strange circumstances that we live with a COVID-19 crisis. As Natalie mentioned, everyone has been affected around the world. We have been affected. We all know people who have suffered personally, or their loved ones, their close family members have suffered directly from this pandemic. The ILAE has a dedicated COVID-19 task force chaired by Dr. Helen Cross, our newly elected president. And it has sections for patients, for clinicians, for researchers, and general information as well. We have a task force on telehealth and telemedicine that is putting together guidelines for carrying out telehealth interventions in our patients. And we also have a number of surveys going on for patients and for clinicians, as well as putting out some papers and publications regarding this crisis that we live in. So we are very active in that regard. There is tremendous engagement of our international community. Our materials are translated in a number of languages, as you can see there, and it's growing. And we keep our finger in the pulse to be as much help as possible to our community. Now, I mentioned earlier that education is an important pillar of our activities, and because the Congress is largely an educational opportunity, I would like to say a few words about education. The ILAE Academy was just launched a couple months ago. It is really in full force. It contains a number of activities, including learning from cases, interactive opportunities for interaction, forums for learners to interact as well. And it provides material for the level 1 curriculum that we have in education. So I urge you to visit that. We recently put together a compendium of what the ILAE is doing in terms of education, and really e-learning, as luck would have it, has developed substantially right at the time where we cannot meet in person. And we have developed a large number of educational activities, and you can see them listed in there. And you can also visit this or look at this article published in Epileptic Disorders, where we do a bit of an overview of the various e-learning activities that we have as part of our offerings, which are particularly relevant now that we cannot meet face to face. This is the North American Commission, or the North American Executive, as Amza mentioned earlier. It is the smallest in terms of the number of members or components. It's two countries and one cluster of countries, so Canada, US, and then the English-speaking Caribbean. The English-speaking Caribbean as a group came together under the leadership of Amza when I was I think chair of the North American Commission back a number of years ago, and then the region became consolidated. And this is your brilliant executive committee who is working hard to promote the activities in favor of epilepsy in the region. There are a number of activities that are being developed, and this is a highlight of 5 aspects that are being undertaken. Leadership development, the Canada-Trinidad collaboration, an important one. There's a global health and epilepsy survey in the website that I urge you to visit. It's very easy. Just go to the website and you will find it there, where global activities are listed and categorized and cataloged, and people can input new activities. It's a very important resource. The Caribbean Driving Project, and not least, the creation of the first ILAE Regional Congress. So this is an example of the leadership courses. This is a very interactive, full day, day and a half, really course with engagement style, personality style assessment, exercises on leadership, and talks by various leaders. And this was originated in the North American region under the leadership of Cheryl Hout and Jaideep Kapoor. And now it has become an International League Against Epilepsy flagship activity that has been offered in various congresses, as you can see in this slide. Now, I'm very close to the end, and I just wanted to say that we have 6 regions in the ILAE, but 5 congresses really. As you can see, we have an African Congress, the 4th was celebrated recently, the Eastern Mediterranean region, 5th Congress, Latin American 10th Congress was celebrated, and Asia-Oceania had its 12th Congress, and Europe has its 13th Congress. And it is my great pleasure that we are now inaugurating the first North American Epilepsy Congress. Not least, thank you to the tremendous work of the Scientific Organizing Committee, to the co-chairs, Natalie Jeté, Mary Secco, and to the tremendous work of our technical team and the ILAE Secretariat. And with that, I just wish all the best to all of the participants, the Congress, and enjoy the Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Weeb, and for that comprehensive review and description of where we are now. And really, there's not much left to do now but to say thanks again to everyone, Professor Weeb, Dan, Mary, Natalie, Martin, and everyone for taking the time to listen tonight to the welcome ceremony. I too, again, feel it's important to reiterate that as we all face the second wave of the pandemic, that we urge you all to stay safe wherever you may be. And let us still look forward, perhaps not in the too distant future, to when this Congress can again become an in-person event, when we will once more enjoy happy reunions with old friends and stimulating discussions with dedicated colleagues. Welcome once more, colleagues and friends, and please enjoy the next 3 days. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Emza, for being our MC. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Right.